Turul knew. The time for concealment had passed. With a deep, steadying breath, he stepped away from the relative safety of the wall's embrace. He moved deliberately to the center of the shaft, his broad shoulders and sculpted torso emerging into the unforgiving light that poured through the barred aperture above. This light, contrasting to the shadowy veil he had maneuvered under, now bathed him in its revealing glow. He was exposed now, his presence possibly known to any who cast their gaze downward. Yet, in this vulnerability, there was strength, a clear message to both his friends and foes that Turul, the eagle of the rebellion, feared no exposure. He was the prelude of the dawn that would soon break over the horizon of their despair. In the stillness that followed the tortured cries, the young hero focused beyond the barred aperture, seeking any sign of the enemy. Above him, only the cold stone of the ceiling met his gaze, a silent guardian to the horrors that unfolded within its confines. The aperture offered no glimpse of the wardens or soldiers he knew prowled those halls. It was a narrow view into a world of anguish, a mere sliver of the larger prison that held his comrades. His heart thrummed with a warrior's rhythm, a silent drumbeat that spurred him to remain vigilant and prepared. The absence of guards was an anomaly that did not escape his notice, and he knew better than to assume the path would be unguarded. They could be just out of sight, or this could be a momentary lapse in their patrols, a brief window of opportunity. Turul's gaze fixed on the barred aperture, his eyes measuring the distance with the precision of a seasoned predator. The space between him and potential freedom or confrontation was scant, a gap easily closed by a man of his strength and agility. His arms lifted, not in an immediate leap, but in a calculated gesture, assessing the space, the risk, and the reward. His mind played out the leap, the trajectory of his body through the air, the silent hope for a soft landing on the other side. But with the vision of his leap came the unbidden image of the sound it would create. The telltale noise of flesh and fabric against metal, a disturbance in the oppressive silence that would undoubtedly draw the attention of those he sought to evade. Each rusted joint of the bars, every possible clang and echo, played out in his mind with the clarity of a premonition. His mind raced with possibilities and plans, a choice between the silence of a cautious approach and the decisiveness of a bold, singular action. He considered his next move, aware that the silence above was as much a cloak for his ascent as a shroud for danger. There was little time for hesitation. The urgency of the mission pressed upon him with an almost physical weight. Yet, the possibility of alerting the guards was a gamble with stakes as high as the lives of his friends and his own. The brave saviour's focus was absolute in the stone column's depths. His comrade's plight was the only truth he allowed into his heart, the only image that filled his determined gaze. Yet, unbeknownst to him, the barred aperture above cast its grid-like shadow upon him, with sharp precision, enveloping him in a pattern that mimicked the very bars he sought to escape. The precise shadow that gridded his body was a silent witness to his potential fate, a premonition of the trap that might already be closing around him. Despite such daunting prospects, Turul's spirit did not falter. For a heart inflamed by the fires of rebellion and justice, the possibility of a trap laid by the despot Rose was but another obstacle to overcome in the fight for freedom. With the screams of the tortured as a grim chorus to his purpose, Turul's resolve deepened. His safety and the looming risk of walking into a meticulously laid snare by Rose all paled against the urgent need to liberate those who suffered. He was prepared to sacrifice his freedom, his very life, if necessary, for the chance to tear down the walls of tyranny. The young rebel set aside the risk of exposure and the potential trap that might await him with the determination of a seasoned warrior. His eyes focused on the barred aperture above, the portal to the dungeon and his endangered comrades. He recognized that the moment for stealth and silence was upon him. The wall before him was slick with the constant flow of filth from above, a vertical morass that would challenge even the most adept climber. But Turul was undaunted. His hands found the uneven crevices and ledges, each a potential handhold in the ascent to the barred window that was his target.